All right. What's up, everyone? This is Isaac with Hunger Smash Fitness, coming to you once again with my co-host, My Block Strongest Man. And today we have the fantastic Nick Camby on here, or Nicholas Camby if you prefer to go by that. So Nick, maybe just you've got a couple world records and stuff under your belt. Maybe just start. What was the first one that you got, and talk to us a little bit about how you got into that.
Sure. Thank you for having me, guys. Of course, always excited to chat. So talking about world records, so of course, the first one being my first true world record is actually a partner's world record I have with Johnny Wasisco from a Hungary world team competition in 2019. So Johnny actually did most of the work of it, but we did like 75 meters with an Icelandic cross. I did like 25 meters. Johnny did 50, but we have a team world record. So technically, that's really the first real world record. The second world record, of course, was the axle press at the class, and that was always that was exciting. Finally, got an opportunity to do the axle, of course, a max axle, and it hasn't really been a big popular event, especially in some of the 105 contests I've been doing. Probably in the past few years, and finally kind of got brought back, and it's actually kind of it's probably my best max out of the three implements, probably the axle. So I was glad I got the opportunity to attempt to break it and broke it.
Have you always competed as a 105, or did you compete at a lower weight and then work up to that?
Well, pretty much like I got like 105 kilo lifer, as well as I would jump into amateur heavy competitions. So I did quite a few of those. I've done the Arnold amateur heavy like 3 times. So nice. I always kind of jump in. But when I first started hey, this is me. When I first started competing, I was probably like 220. I was probably like 228, and then I started gaining some weight. And then after a couple of years, I was like 240, and doing kind of like minor cuts. And then I've gone to the point up to like 260 in the off season. I would do a big cut, but for the most part, where I find comfortable is like 250, and I cut to 231. But yeah, I've always been 105 kilo, but I've just kind of filled out. So I used to not cut weight, and then now, of course, I cut big weight. So I do the elaborate water cuts.
Yeah, there you go. Well, I would have to cut a little bit more weight than you, because I'm sitting right at 300, I think, right now. So it'd be a long cut for me to get down to the 105.
Yeah, I think you always hear about big cuts, but like which big cuts are actually like successful? Of course, at least for our weight class, I think. Not sure if you guys are familiar with Jordan Donaldson, but I want to say he cut from like 270. Aiden Clayton would probably be the other guy. He does like high 260s. But I'm saying they cut weight and also won the show. So those are probably like 2 examples. But the higher you go, the more likely that it's harder to like really execute performance wise too. So it's a really fine balance. But some guys, if they execute it right, it's a huge advantage. So again, the heavier you cut from, the bigger risk you're taking.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, so two very particular things about this world record here. One of them is how you spun around with it. So was that kind of intentionally done for showmanship, or
a little bit?
It
was light enough that I could move around with it. In my training, I'm pretty good. Like I do, like of course, a lot of work off the blocks, but I can generally like walk the bar out. For the most part, I probably could have walked that one out, like walk straight out with it, but because generally when I lock it overhead, it's not necessarily like locked up with my shoulders and tricep, but it's more like locked up with my back and like upper scapulas. So I can it's a good firm position. But yeah, in training I'll walk with it, but I didn't want to slide. My goal was to twist all the way around and drop it on the pads, but I actually missed it. But Johnny said they're pure steel, so I'm not going to put too much damage on them.
That's what I was going to say. The other very particular thing about that lift is that here's real strength. You were able to put it down gingerly.
So I try to do my best, but yeah, I was like, oh no, this is like, of course, Johnny Wasisco also provided a lot of the equipment, so I'm like, I know it's Johnny, so I didn't want to mess it up. Like his car walk got a little destroyed. Like we destroyed the axle. Some competitors like picked it up, like I think in one run picked it up 10 times, so it really did a number on it.
Nice. Johnny Waz is awesome. All good things come out of New Jersey.
Exactly.
So when you were preparing for the axle, because you said that it's more like your upper back and stuff that's holding it rather than
Well, it's just, I would say like it's so very similar to, and I kind of mimic. So there's a little history on myself. So when I started strongman, I also was kind of a year later I started Olympic lifting in conjunction. So I learned a lot of that technique and I brought that towards strongman. But the way kind of like you would like an Olympic lifter holds a jerk, it's a little different than kind of strongman pressing. So I mimic most of my pressing towards Olympic lifting.
Okay.
So it's the same way. They're kind of like they're most of like the weights in the upper back rather than shoulder. But a lot of it's like it's the internal rotation of like the arms and the bicep being out, so you can gauge that. But so that's why it's easy to hold the weights. I'm not like holding it in my arms really. It's really my upper back that allows me to. And again, it's over my like center of gravity too. So like over my hips. So sometimes if it's away from you and not under your hips, it'll be harder to hold as well.
Yeah, it's interesting because I know because I've done like log press and stuff with some of the strongman contests before, but like I'm actually doing a class right now at the college where we're actually going through the NSCA, CSCS certification and all that sort of stuff, and so we're learning all the Olympic lifts. And it's so weird because I was like, every time I do like a clean or anything, I'm used to having the log up front, and like rolling it up my chest and everything, and trying to figure out how to move my body around, doing a clean and jerk and all that sort of stuff. And I was like, I'm not quite as nimble in those movements as I thought I was. It's a little bit humbling, I guess.
Now, how long you been at it?
With strongman?
No, just with those like the clean and Olympic lifting.
Oh, like 3 weeks.
3 weeks. Yeah. So like for instance, like I always say like generally like the learning curve for strongman is probably the easiest out of powerlifting and Olympic lifting. Right, those are so specific. I think even people that compete on years still don't really understand how to properly clean, jerk, and snatch. So it's one of those type of things.
Yeah. I'd probably agree with that.
And I also want to add that it's really tough to learn proper form from Americans because generally lately the Americans have been decent, but I learned it from Russian weightlifting coaches. So I did not take the word of any like American lifter. I used to love Donnie Shanko back in the day. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Cal Strength, but like he was probably what was one of my favorite Olympic lifters and got me doing Olympic lifts and also like inspired a lot of my like of course just motivation to work out and be strong. But I like he was just very strong. He wasn't quite the technique, but like the Russians or even the Chinese probably have the best technique, and that's where. But I had just lucky that in the area there was like 3 great Russian coaches that I went to.
Awesome. That's that's awesome. I was gonna say we have some comments too in the comments over here. So Costin Sutton says, Nip Canby is completely untouchable on the 105K level. Dude, I think he means 105 kg level.
Yeah, that's the class. But Big Z, I like the comparisons to Big Z.
There you go.
But it's a fun fact. So Big Z is going to come to my next contest, which is he's also competing to that contest as the official Strongman Games as a Masters. So it would be good to see him. But he was the head ref at my contest in Russia. So I got to spend a lot of time with him, and it was cool. Of course, just kind of shooting shit with the best of all time. So he's a cool dude. So any comparison to him is. And then Derek, I've never actually talked to Derek, but kind of indirectly we have, of course, a lot of mutual friends. But I think I've watched so many of his videos when I was young, and I think I of course subconsciously do a lot of the things that he did when he was doing strongman. So you were talking about the axle spin. That was actually I normally would walk it out, but Derek Poundstone did the spin back at the Mckeegan Sun Super Series when they used to have it. So I watched that a bunch of times. So I probably subconsciously did it too because it was also on an axle, and I think he also was hitting either won the event or hit a big like American record or something. And then also the Poundstone hitch, which is I've always been compared to like some of that, like someone said like, oh, I haven't seen a hitch like that since Derek Poundstone. And I'm like, oh, that's again, I appreciate the comparison.
That's awesome.
So thank you, Costin. Thank you, Costin.
Yeah, I was going to say, this is a very knowledgeable opinion. Costin Sutton happens to be the Strongman Corporation state rep for South Carolina. So kind of relevant to ASM that you were just at, and as a big proponent for American athletes.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Sun.
yeah, that's Mr. Sutton. No, he's cool. He's a nice guy. And then he also he likes so much amateur content on Instagram. Kind of gives us amateurs a little confidence boost. Yeah. Well, awesome. So which all? I guess let's say this: how many world records do you currently hold, and how many have you had?
So I would say, of course, I have the team record, but really the three individual records that I have. So like the log, the block, and the axle, and that was all. I hit those all this year.
Nice. Yeah, I saw that one. That's one of the things. Like overhead pressing has never been very fun for me. I have these freakishly long arms, and I'm 6'5" with like a 7'2" wingspan or something like that.
Yeah, of course, it's a game of leverages. I imagine you're probably pretty better deadlifter than deadlifter men. And that's, I would say that's most common than not. And I was of course, sorry to cut you off a little bit, but I think leverage is like half the game. So I think that's what people sometimes understand. Like, but like some things that got come more natural. Like deadlift probably came more natural to you, or pressing came more natural to me. I actually have short arms compared to my leverages, so I think that gives me an advantage. And I think I've talked to like Alexander Bromley about it. He's the same way. Or no, I'm not sure, either we talked about it or watched one of his videos, but he said the same exact thing, where it's just a game of leverages and his arm is short. I think you guys had him on recently, right?
Yeah,
Alex is very knowledgeable about leverage.
Oh, absolutely.
I learned quite a lot from him.
Of course, he used to train with one of my one of my good friends, my mentor, Sean DeMarinis, out in California. So he comes from kind of like the same school of kind of strongman style. Of course, they're very static strength.
Yeah, he's fantastic. Yeah, he was a great one to have on as well. Not as many world records necessarily yet, but
I have questions about the block. So Nick, that's the Mauser block that you're referring to?
Yes, sir.
So, I mean, I think people are usually interested to learn about, like, what are all the intricacies that make that a difficult thing to master?
It's super dense. And then I think it's just kind of like a little bit of kind of an awkward movement, but going back to the dense part, like, so sometimes you'll have a 300-pound log, but it's all the way. Of course, you have the waist extended. If it's a wooden log, it might be even longer. So like the weight's dispersed. You have 300 all just right here. So I think it's not a lot of people are used to having the 300 right there. Sometimes, again, if it's dispersed or it's kind of bending, but you just have the whole thing. And then also, since given the size of it, I think it's the stability is also super more difficult. And I've been giving good tips. I think you guys had Travis on. Travis Ormeyer told Anthony Deal and the Serbia-Russian contest to not do it with wrist straps, because you need the wrist mobility to do it, right? So if you're wrist strap and you're trying to like you want to be wrist up when you're wrapped up when you're like bench pressing or doing like another overhead press, but on the since there's so much instability with the block, you almost want to be kind of like be able to get around it and have like a good position on it. So he said no wrist straps, and that really worked for Deal. I think I remember Deal telling me that. So I trained. I did like a mini prep for the block when I was doing the log. The log was more important, so I spent more time, but I also spent some time on the block. But I was training without wrist straps, and then it worked really well. So of course that was a good tip that went kind of like down the line, right?
So do you typically train with wrist straps then when you're doing overhead pressing, or do you?
Yeah, so when I get heavy, I generally put wrist straps on like log or axle, even the barbell. But the block is just a little different, where it might be more advantageous to not have wrist straps. Or I could try like with like a lighter wrist strap, but I felt comfortable enough that I think I could break the record without the wrist straps or too much supportive gear.
So does that mean that one of these days when Isaac invites me over and lets me lift his log, I'll lift more than the stones in the forest I'm lifting overhead because it's more dispersed?
Yeah, I believe it.
All right, cool.
So I there's some guys that and back to that theory, I've seen some guys hit bigger weights when the log is like 12 feet long. So I think there's definitely a component to that, and that's kind of like my goal. I want to get a 12-foot log now, so maybe I can add like 10 more pounds.
That's interesting. I haven't done much. I mean, because I've only trained with basically one log. It's like the Rogue steel one, so it's not a wooden one or anything. But it's been interesting because I've never been able to touch a wooden log or anything. But talking to some people where they say with the wooden log it's different because it's weighted differently. So because you'll have knots and everything in the wood and all that sort of stuff, and so it pulls differently. But I haven't heard anyone mention the length of the log before. So. I don't know. Maybe talk some more about that. That's interesting to me.
I would think that depending on how much weight's on your chest, I remember, or even at ASM, we used the Bartos Boss log, which is like 233 empty. So it's you're not. I had trouble even getting like. I like to have like a high rack position. In order to do that, it's almost like a front double bicep. So you're forcing everything up, and it's really. I had trouble doing that because the log was so dense. Like all 233 pounds was on me compared to maybe like 90 pounds on me, and then having 270 or plus more on the sides or something like that. If it was like if I was working on my pit bull and doing like when I was repping. So I think there's some balance, and I remember. It didn't bother some of the other kind of competitors, but maybe that more of the heavyweight went up. But when one like the first max logs I had was in 2015. It was the first time they had not only the amateur heavies, but they had the other amateur classes on the rogue stage. If you made it to Sunday, so we did that. But the rogue log, it was like the same shape, but it was silver. But it was 255 empty, and I remember picking that thing up, and I remember just how much it sucked, like the clean and just how dense it was. But it was like 255. It's a little heavier than the boss log, but it was 255. And I ended up blacking out on 345 when I've hit probably like 360 or 350 or 360 on a pit bull, which is like 90 pounds empty. So I think there is a component to how weights are, how logs are, of course, spaced out in terms of weight and dispersion. But even like we see some of the, like I think Iron Baby had a pretty long log, and a lot of giant slab rails are always on a Slater, and those are pretty much longer. So I think if the log is, I think if you play around with the log enough, you can make it that you can probably do a little more weight than compared to something really dense. But I also, on the flip side, if you're doing stuff like for reps or doing like speed movement, it does help to work on a dense log. But I think in the long run, I think you probably hit a bigger max on a long log.
So do you think it'd be more advantageous to train on a smaller dense log, and then when you get into competition,
I think we're talking like depending on if you're. I think the amateur, I think it doesn't really matter. Even like a decent pro, it doesn't really matter. But I think when you get to the points of like potentially myself or like an Iron Bibby hitting those weights, it could be a difference of like 5 or 10 pounds. But I think for just regular weights, it's not going to really different. But once you get to a certain point where only like I'll just say like only like a few individuals can hit that. So that maybe like the top percent of log pressers.
That's interesting. Yeah, that's a really good point. I've never really thought of that before. So with training with the Mauser, do you have a Mauser that you trained on, or did you just simulate it?
So like for instance, like in terms of like I go to a few different gyms. So Total Performance Sports is where I go normally during the week, and that's been my home gym and where I've gone since like 2012. But a good friend of mine, Eric Dawson, who also came out of TPS originally, has a place where I go on Saturdays generally. So good like training crew. And he had a Mauser block, and he has a lot of other great equipment. So I'll stop there on Saturdays. There's generally, again, a pretty good crew to work out with.
Awesome. That's good.
But yeah, I don't have to get a Mauser block, but I think in the future I'll probably get one. But I think now is a Texas Concept block because I think they make the block or they have the specs for it.
Yeah. Are you thinking about re-breaking your record, or are you just going to let it sit until someone else breaks it and then try and take it back?
So on block or all three?
All three, I guess. Yeah.
I think there's a possibility where there's a
John.
I need some tips on this. It has no handles. What do I do?
Are you just pressing a log out in the woods?
Yeah, it was big.
Yeah, I think you would have to try to like lap it to a little bit. But that looks like pretty heavy and run. So I don't know if you want to ruin your pants, but no, that's funny. But sorry, I got a little sidetracked.
So just with the
world,
the
different records pushing it. So I think there's a gentleman in the name of his company goes by Winning Strength. He's from England, and his name is Tom Hibbert. There we go. Yeah. So Tom Hibbert, I think he's gone after a few times, but I think he's going after the log record again. So we'll see if he does it. And if he does break it, I have a feeling that it's not going to be the last time I see Max log in a contest. So hopefully it's the first event. So that would be I'll probably go for that. So if that's like next year or the year after, I would, and then. Again, a lot of times it depends on the situation. It depends on the contest where the event is. But the axle, I feel that I could break that again. That's probably my most confident out of all the lifts where I think I could push the axle to like 430, and then with like really specific training and maybe 440.
Wow. Have you trained with the fat grips before, or do you ever always just use an axle?
I generally use the axle, and then like for instance when I use like the tsunami bar, that's a thicker grip too. So yeah, that's very similar to that, to like probably a little skinnier than an axle, but it's thicker than a regular bar.
Yeah, the old gym that I used to train at had a tsunami bar, and that thing was actually a ton of fun because we'd hang like a kettlebell or something from each side and try and do either overhead pressing or benching or something like that. And that's completely different. Like that changes the movement significantly when the bar wiggles and bounces.
Oscillation, yeah. So that controlling the oscillation, I think it's another level of like stability stuff. That someone can work on. So, of course, I've been working with them since like 2018, but I used the bar since like 2016. But it's just a great tool to add to your arsenal. And again, I always recommend to put like blocks. So sometimes do like a squat and block with it. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a main lift, but it can be like a second or third main lift or part of your accessories. But it's great to kind of work it in different areas. And again, you can go super. Yeah, you can go super heavy. You can go decently light. But it's definitely a great tool, and it's hard to mimic. And then if you're a little more of like an athletic type of athlete, so like especially with pressing, if you like to do like push jerks, power jerks, split jerks, I don't recommend doing squat jerks and strongman, but it teaches you kind of how to push yourself under the bar. So you were mentioning a little bit in the conversation before when you're leading the Olympic movements, how you're moving your weight around the bar. The tsunami bar, if done correctly, kind of teaches one how to push yourself under the weight. It's hard to clean, but definitely on pressing.
That. Huh. Yeah, I'll definitely have to try and find access to one of those and try and do some more of the cleans and stuff with that. Then that'd be interesting to add.
Absolutely.
Isaac, I don't know what your agenda is, but we may want to get into America's Strongest Man sometime soon.
Yeah,
had incredible performances really all around there, so we really want to talk about that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. America was fun. That was my 6th America's Strongest Man. So of course, for you kids, sometimes when they don't win on their first contest, or if they get to a new level that they don't win, sometimes it takes a lot of time at that certain level to again eventually get to the top. But yeah, that was of course exciting. The events were pretty good for me. I think I had 4 great events, and then 2 events where I needed to finish kind of I need to finish above average or better. So going into it, I know I was going to be at the fingers. That was a good event for me, a Clash. I should win the log. If I did, I just broke the log record, and Anthony Furman was making fun of me. He's like, "You can't break the record and then lose in a rep contest." So I'm just going to be the log master. So I trained pretty hard for that. And then you have the deadlift. The deadlift is something I wanted to kind of prove to myself. It's what we were talking before. So the deadlift, it's funny actually. It came supernatural to me, and then that supernatural went away, and it became my absolutely worst event. And then it came back to be another good event. So I really kind of fought with the deadlift throughout my kind of career, but right now it's on the up and up. So I knew I podiumed the last 3 or 4 contests at like similar level shows. So I have a feeling that I was good for podium or better. And then the sandbag carry. Yeah, there it is. And then the sandbag carry was after this. And last year I came in second. Anthony Deal beat me out on it. And he took first, and he ended up taking the show. And of course, he didn't come this year, so I had a good feeling I was again good for top 2, or if not, I was best returning person that's done the sandbag, so I should win that event. But yeah, the semi-fight was great. So that was I think that was like a 70-pound PR, because I haven't done like a max bar deadlift, a straight bar deadlift in a while. Like try to get your side handles or a frame deadlift. You always have like all different type of deadlifts, but we haven't done like a straight one up from with a bar in a while. So yeah, that was exciting. And then 800 is just around the corner.
Yeah. One thing I noticed with the deadlift is you seem, not only in deadlift, but in a lot of different disciplines, just very efficient. So even when you hitch once. Like other guys are hitching and hitching and hitching to get it up. It seems like you've just practiced it 1,000 times, and like that one hitch will get it. And like, am I on target there? Are you practicing? Are you practicing efficiency?
I would like to consider I'm a expert at hitching, and I did that because I became a good. But it's funny, the way I became a good hitcher is because I had bad deadlift form at one point, right? So I was hitching everything, but now I only hitch when I need to hitch, and I've done it so many times. Is that you get it over the knees, you lean back, you take a breath, and then you activate the glutes again, and of course lock it out. But yeah, to answer your question, yeah, I think you're spot on.
Cool. And then on Fingal's Fingers, I noticed too, like a specific technique thing you did. So I'm wondering if that kind of sprawl backwards you did was to compensate for the shiny floor, or that's your technique on Fingers.
So it's similar to a power clean, where you're working it way up, but you also want to get under it a little bit. So it helps me. So the once they're going up, it started getting pretty heavy. So I think when I trained it, and I didn't have these at home, so I replicated that on a landmine. I had a bar. I used 25s, and the 25s are pretty slippery, like a finger. So I had gloves on, so I was able to kind of like replicate, but I only replicated the pickup, and I knew the rest of it was just kind of like leg drive and like shoulder strength. But I'm trying to simulate like a power clean there, so I get under it a little bit so I can do the heavier weights.
Did you feel that because we've heard from several other people that the floors were very slippery?
Oh, absolutely.
A little bit of an issue.
Yeah, they allowed us to do like the tacky towel like on our feet. So I was doing it on my goal. I slid the most when I was flat footed, but if I stayed on my toes, I slipped less. So I found that when I was on my toes, that was and you have a better drive on your toes, and you should be on your toes when you're doing an event like that. So that's when I found like the best drive.
That's awesome.
But yeah, that was exciting. So, and then of course we were talking about the events, and then we have the sandbag, and sandbag is kind of my, I would say kind of like my nemesis a little bit right now. So it's one of those, the sandbag throw. So of course the carry is fun.
This one,
but I almost actually blew. So it was funny. So I kind of amassed a pretty good lead, and just pretty much like I just had to kind of like don't blow it kind of situation. Just do what I'm supposed to, or even just hit match what I did in training. So we start with the 40 bag, and I actually missed it twice, and then got it on the third time. But if I missed that, I would have zeroed the event, and that would have been like that would have been a big oops, right? So I got the 40. And then I got the 45 on the first throw, so that was great. But then on this 51, that first throw was just right. I think we will watch right now. It was just right on the top. Like if I was stepping back, that would have been over. So that was just unlucky. But yeah, I'm glad that kind of stuck it out. But sometimes when you get that desperation, that's when you put into like fourth gear and you really figure out like what you can really do. And then 55, I gave it a good throw. But on this, like sandbag in general, it's kind of a newer event. The first time I've had it recently, or the first time we've had it, not recently, but just the first time it came back and it was popular among all the contests was in 2018 at OSG. And since then it's been in almost every contest that has been on probably every contest except like one or two. but it's just we're back to levers. It's not I have long legs, but I have like shorter arms, which makes great for pressing and split jerking, but not throwing the sandbag. So it doesn't naturally come. I've gotten much better. I was 1 ASM. I came second to last in the event, and I lost a lot of points. And now I've been getting like mid pack or above average on it. So if I can stay there, or if I can improve on that, that'll be great. And then of course the last event was the Husfeld carry and max distance. It's not like I'm not going to beat like a James or a Tommy Sharp on it. But I know I'm pretty decent at it. And I finished, I think 4th. So I still decent points. And that was pretty neat. So of course the Husfeld carry, the shield. And it was kind of tough at the end. I was like walking off the thing because I couldn't really see, right? And and Davey Waters, he was doing a good job, but sometimes I can't really hear, and I was just like walking off the side. But like I wasn't gonna get like disqualified or anything, but I'm just like spending a little more extra energy. But I probably didn't have to go as much to end up like winning the contest, but I gave like at least a good go. I wasn't gonna like, you can sometimes like bust out a little more by like taking a seat, taking a breath, and then going another length or two. But I just gotta give it until my legs gave out. So, but that was cool. They were going head to head. I was going head to head with Jeff. I know Jeff stopped by on the podcast. But yeah, it was great to kind of compete with him. So that was the first time I competed with Jeff since 2017. So. But he's a fierce competitor, and it's great that he's back.
Yeah, that's a lot of fun. So I mean, first and foremost, thank you for calling it a shield. I think I'm the only one saying, how in the hell is this thing with no edges called a Husafel? So thank you. It's a shield. But yeah, you were saying you couldn't see very well, but I think like that's kind of a balance, right? You couldn't see well because where you were holding it was perfect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was very low on it. So it is what it is. So I just I think again I had a good carry position. But the biggest thing, you want to clear your legs. You don't want your legs be hitting the bottom of it. That's when it really makes it, when you really make it hard.
Yeah, it's interesting watching you with Jeff in the background, and you know he can see over top of it.
Yeah, he went that direction. So so like I'm holding a little lower than he is.
Yeah, but you can see it slowly sliding further down for him too.
And Jeff has like an inch on me, so a little longer strides. Yeah, he's like kind of deceptively tall, Mr. Jeff is. But yeah, but of course that I was doing 6 events. I was pretty shot after, but again, it was kind of exciting to, of course, kind of win the contest. It was the heavies were, I wasn't sure who was going to win out of that battle, and of course, Josh Silva's becoming winning at an amateur was great. Again, a good lineup. Of course, Ty Khan and Marcus Crowder and Wes Claiborne are of course, the no bums. They're one of the great. They're probably some top Americans right there. So it's interesting. I'll be interested to see kind of Josh Silva how he does. But yeah, it was interesting. I haven't posted yet, but I got to post a picture of him. A picture I took with me and him. Just of course the 2 America's Strongest Men. But he's actually 2 of me, so we're just different. I never actually had to say like some of that. I've never said that about another competitor before. But I think he. Forget what he told one of the guys, but I think he was weighing in around like 470. But on your show, he was like 490.
Yeah, 490 on here.
Yeah, he said he was 490.
Yeah,
which
he's 2 of me. I haven't said like I was like that's
me.
A whole lot of man.
Yeah, he's got 200 pounds on me almost. Like that's ridiculous.
But yeah, I was thinking about also the bag over bar again. Going back to efficiency, it seemed like even on your misses, you were running right back to it. Like you had the timing down. It just seemed like, I don't know. I don't want to say anything disparaging about anybody else, but it just seemed like you had a little bit of a technique edge in a few different areas.
No, interesting. Yeah, I think that's probably just drilling, but it has to be. Yeah, I know that. I try to do as fast as I could, just because. Yeah, if I didn't get it, maybe. I would still have a chance to throw it. Like I know, like within those 30 seconds, I know at least he had like 3 attempts. I was surprised I got the 4th was in time. I thought I was probably close to the buzzer. That's probably my guess.
Well, and you also caught one of them too, which I
think I saved some time on that.
Yeah, I was gonna say that might be what actually gave you enough time.
I guided it with my face, right? So I think one of those.
I don't think it's a recommended style of training, but
Yeah, is that just reflexes? Like
That
it's
was just panic. I was
like
like, oh,
like
shit,
it's
I need to get
coming and
this.
reflexes tell you to
He
catch
was
it.
like, God damn it, I need. Oh, so excuse me, I need to get this over. So, that was just panic. So even the best panic at times. So you just gotta try to dig it out.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I spend the most time on, like, even on this prep for this next contest. I'm throwing more. Even though I'm pretty. Yeah, I'm throwing more than any other event. So I'm like just focusing on bags. So, and again, it's also pretty even rewarding and a challenge itself to kind of really improve on something tough. So I would like to, if I get like top four, if I could get like top four, even like top five again on something like that, that'd be great.
Yeah,
But
and then the other tech. Oh, go ahead.
I would say, but what's interesting is that, like, anytime there's like a finals, not necessarily the best. Like, there's 34 guys in my weight class, but not necessarily the best back thrower is going to make the finals, right? So that's where sometimes I'll kind of not make up some points, but it's really just about, that's when it gets to kind of experience. There is just kind of just who's done it the most, and it's not necessarily I'm better than the others, but just like I was able to get here and I have more, and then now maybe all the best back testers get eliminated, right? So, but you were saying?
No, I was going to ask another technique question about log. So when I was watching you do the log press, I was thinking, oh, he's saving time because he's never letting go of it. And then Rob Kearney also mentioned, yeah, his foot placement doesn't move either. So, like, my question is, are those things intentional? Again, like repetitions over time, efficiency sort of movements?
So I think there was also the rule where we couldn't slam it. So, like, for instance, I thought it was kind of a silly rule. But we couldn't drop it all back on the pads. We had to like guide it down, which is kind of a little bit of an amateur rule, especially with how heavy it is and how many reps we're trying to do. So for the most part, I was like, all right, I don't want to get lose a rep because I didn't place it down, so I'll hold on to it. So, but in terms of like always, even when I work it down, I always kind of try to throw it in the right place so I can just do a quick grab. So, but yeah, to answer your question, I would say, yeah, it's my goal is to not move that much to be more efficient. But I had to hold it so I don't get in trouble, so I don't get fined.
Worked out all around. Go ahead, Isaac. I think I cut you off.
No, that's okay. Yeah, I was gonna make a comment about the log too, but yeah. So I was gonna say, what all competitions do you have upcoming?
So official strongman games. So that'll be 105 kilo worlds. So that'll be exciting. So I think right now, if hopefully everybody comes, but that'll be 34 individuals across like 13 countries, mostly American, but I think you had like Africa's strongest man, 105 kilo. Of course, you have someone kind of, I think, from Finland and Sweden, who I think we have some Ukrainian and Poland, Canadians, and of course Englishmen, Irishmen. I forget some of the other kind of countries represented, but it should be a good mix of individuals. But yeah, I'm excited. So that's of course 6 events, and it's almost, I've had it on my kind of like my goal board all year. So of course to kind of win the Clash, win ASM, win this. So this is kind of like the last one of the 3. So almost kind of like in a sense, kind of like the 105 kilo majors, as you will, right, for like an American, to kind of win all these contests. But there's never been, even though it was probably introduced in 2016, in terms of like a Giants Live OSG Worlds, there's never been a champion that's won America's Strongest Man and Official Strongman Games in the same year. So that's kind of my goal, to finish out the year, and that would be, again, a good precedent to set for all the other 105s.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was just trying to pull up the list here. Let me see if I can. Some of the guys I recognize, but a lot of them.
So we can go up from the list. Miko, I think he doesn't have a great Instagram or social media presence, but he won the Strongman Champion League's 105 kilo contest that recently held. Yuri Katalchek got second. Forgot who got third. I think Darren Hermides. Sorry, Darren, if I messed up your name and you're listening. He took fourth. He had pretty good. I think he was right there in the mix. But yeah, Miko's. I heard he was a pretty strong presser. Of course, James Deffenbach. Of course, this is gonna be me and James's 10th competition together. He's probably the person I've competed with the most. Is Mr. James. Fun staff. We have an individual out of France. I think I've seen his name come around. Daniel Hughes is the recent national 105 kilo winner and newest strongman pro. I'm not sure about Vitaly. I'm not too familiar with Steven. And of course, I think either Paul or Melvin is the Africa's strongest 105 kilo. I'm not too sure with my Canadian friend Luke Davies. I think he might be banged up. Let's see. Am I familiar with Jason? Kevin's out of Connecticut. Of course, strong competitor. Matthew Mckeegan. He has the world record in the deadlift. So he's a pretty strong individual. Chris Burke. He bumps in between 105 kilo and heavyweight all the time, but he's a great competitor. I'm pretty sure he's still doing it. Todd Williams, kind of younger guy. And then we have Gurdeep. Yes, Singh. I actually messaged another kind of Indian strongman that I follow. I wasn't sure if he was familiar with it, but strongman is pretty new to India, even like all strength sports. So it's great that they're getting involved. Nick Stross, I think he's out of Colorado. He works out with San Lorenzo, I believe. I think he's out of the same gym, right? I believe.
I think so.
So again, he's pretty solid. Reed Tompkins, he just competed at nationals. He's a solid competitor. He also made the Clash finals. I think, am I familiar with List from? I think he's the Polish guy. That's a pulling flag, right? Or is that red? Forget sometimes if it's white over red, red over white. But Liz, I think he has a pretty strong press from what I've known, but I don't know too much of him. And same thing with I'm not sure of Nicholas and Jake. I've talked to Shane Darrow, who of course is a strong American. I'm not too familiar with Jacob. Of course, you have our boy Bromley. You have Justin Loy, a good friend of mine. So I think Justin could be bringing a pretty good package. So I think he's one to watch. Of course, he won nationals in 2020, and then he's been just kind of fighting in the pro scene. So I think he looks pretty good for this. He looked pretty good at Waco. When I went to, of course, break the record, they were, of course, competing for the qualifiers for 2022. So I think he's going to be great. Chad Curran is the next. He's also a great athlete too. Very static. I think 1 year he got fourth at the Arnold Amateur Heavy. So he's a great competitor. I'm not familiar with Chris Murray. And then what we have Hudson. Hudson is a young kid. He's a kind of great young competitor. Of course, I talked to him the other day, so he's pretty excited for this. Nicholas Camby's a chump. John M.L. Westby. I'm not too familiar with him. Of course, we have a boy Johnny Waz. I'm not familiar with him either. Frank Pisano, the newest. Also, he won his pro card at America's Strongest Man. But he's I think he's a threat for day 2. And Sean Shoemaker, I talked to him the other day as well. He's a little banged up, but he's gonna stick it out, and if he sticks it out, he's gonna be again a finals day threat.
Yeah, some of them I'm definitely familiar with, but a lot of them I've never heard of before either. So it'll be interesting to see the results and see how everyone does, and especially with. I'm excited because it seems like strongman is continuing to grow. You know, for a long time it was kind of more just a American, Canadian, and European thing, and it seems like it's slowly starting to kind of get more countries involved and stuff. So it's cool seeing that there's some Indian competitors as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, it's interesting. I don't know if you guys ever watched the Generation Iron 2 when was it Kyle Green goes to India, and he and he just gets swamped because they're so into bodybuilding. So I think it's, you know, I see it through a lot of like kind of social media, especially like kind of Instagram, a lot of just of course you see a lot of times with the of course, the lifters from India, that's the time where you see them like they always like a spot when they're on deadlifting and stuff like that, or on like areas where you're not supposed to spot, which is kind of hilarious. But there's some guys that are pretty strong, but again, it's kind of like their own style. But I think I think if there's a lot of opportunity just in general and just in India. I think if like, of course, the strength spark keeps going because it's such a young population, and if they and there's probably much more males that are probably into lifting maybe after a few years as it get popular than probably some of the other places in the world. So I think we're going to see an explosion of like Indian athletes coming soon, especially. But yeah, it's great that to see Gurdeep coming. So we'll see if other individuals go. They hosted an Indian contest like Johnny Tyler Young and Marshall Zen from America all went down to Mumbai, India for a contest in 2019. So this is STL also. So the one that they just hosted in Finland, but this was an STL show. But so like they're going to be, I think there's an official strongman qualifier in India too. So it's getting pretty popular.
That's awesome.
Does OSG have a deadlift event?
What, like in India?
I mean OSG this year.
So they have the ladder, and generally the last 2 years it's been a 4 deadlift ladder, but now it's going to be a 5th bar, which is the mammoth bar. So it's interesting. I'm not sure if they're going to change the rules. I haven't asked, but right now it's 5 bars in 60 seconds, which is it's a pretty steep task, right? Especially when they're all the way going ascending. And at least for us, like that 760 at the end is not going to be any joke. So, it'll be interesting in terms of like how many guys will finish that. And I think just the 4 bars, only like 4 or 5 guys finished it last year at the 105 kilo. I'm not sure about the other weight classes, so it'll be interesting how guys handle that.
Yeah, the reason why I asked is because I saw the list, and Frank Provenzano is a deadlift monster for Max, and Sean Schumacher is a deadlift monster for car deadlift. So it'll be interesting to see them both in action.
He not only car deadlift, Sean Schumacher's great at all deadlifts, and generally doesn't like. I'm surprised he actually wore a belt for the car deadlift. Other events he doesn't wear a belt, but like he's pulled. I think he's pulled on like the Arnold stage like 858 beltless before. He's a freak, and he's only getting stronger.
Yeah, I was gonna say too, with a ladder like that, do you usually use the figure 8 straps, or do you use
figure eight would probably be, if you got to use straps, is probably the fastest way to kind of and that was the first time I ever used figure 8 straps was for the ladder back in when I did it first in 2018.
Yeah, I finally got a pair of figure 8 straps year and a half ago, something like that, and like. I like them. It's weird because I feel like I don't hang on to the bar as hard with them. Like they're looser, and so I don't know. It's just different than using the traditional style, I guess. Like I just have some Pioneer HD ones. But I could see with a ladder where a figure 8 would be fantastic because you can just whip it off and whip it on to the next bar really quickly, and you don't have to actually sit there and twist it and wind and take your setup time basically.
Yeah, I think some people have trouble with like locking their lats in with the figure 8. So that's a little bit of a challenge. Yeah,
I can see that definitely. It was funny too in class the other day. We were asking about where you spot for different lifts, and the instructor asked where you spot for a deadlift, and I was like, oh well, you stand behind the guy, and he was like, no, you don't want to spot for a deadlift. I was like, no, you have the nose torque ready, so when he passes out, you can whip it out and we'll get him to wake back up. He didn't laugh. I don't know.
But what is in powerlifting? A lot because if they fall backwards, right, and they pass out, they fall backwards. That's something catch. But you never actually like touch them.
No, definitely. Although it's funny because I think every time I've seen someone actually pass out from a deadlift, usually they take like 3 to 5 steps first, and then they fall, face forward into the power rack or something. So it's usually not just they don't just fall over backwards.
The only thing that makes me cringe is people spotting overhead pressers. Like if they're like if someone's pressing overhead and like they're standing right behind them, like what's the point? It's like most of the time there's someone's gonna get hurt, or if anything they should just dump it in front of them, right? But I don't know, that's the one thing I disagree with is spotting on pressing. Of course, overhead pressing. Specify.
But and John, I just thought you had something here to add to the stream as well.
Yeah, I thought it was a pretty cool picture.
Yeah, they took that in Russia. So they just captured the moment. So I was like, holy mackerel, that is a cool picture. And then of course, again, Lynn added a little more for, of course, the invite. But yeah, I was pumped, and even my of course my future mother-in-law sent me like a kind of like a huge picture of it to frame up in my room. So I have that hanging up on this wall. So I do enjoy that. America.
That's awesome.
I'm excited for just the contest. Just you see a lot of different individuals you've seen over the years. Of course, since there's so many weight classes, so it is like I do enjoy like the clashes where it's just a focus on your weight class. But this is a little different. You do get to see everybody. A lot of good friends, so all different weight classes, some of the heavyweights, and then of course it would be cool to see a lot of like the great masters that are competing. Like, so of course I was saying like Zadrunas, Shivlikov. I think you have I'm a little blanking, but I think you have some other big names. I'm not sure if you have the masters list in front of you too.
My favorite master that I saw on that list is Steve Schmidt. I love Steve Schmidt.
Steve, yeah, of course, Mr. Steve. Yeah, he has a block record. But yeah, he's also a great log presser. So yeah, exciting. But you can find. It's funny. Anytime you watch like any Rogue videos or like the Rogue Invitational, he's always in the background somewhere because he does. I think he's done like every one like the last 6 or 7 years.
Man, I was excited to see Dimitar Savatinov is competing again. I
did see that. Yeah.
He's always a hoot. I don't know. I always get such a kick out of him for some reason. I don't know why.
Well, yeah, he's just so just because I think there's something about like, for instance, like why Tyler Young is so like lovable, right? Just kind of like the short, stocky strength, right?
Yeah,
and Dimitar is really similar, probably maybe a little stronger than Tyler, but just Dimitar used to put up some huge weights, and he's a two-time America's Strongest Man, I believe. I think he won it twice.
Something like that, yeah.
He beat Oberst one year, and I forget who he beat another year. But I'm talking like maybe like 2014, 2015. I got to double check the dates.
It's weird because I feel like Dimitar was super active for a while. And then I saw like he deleted his Instagram, he deleted his Facebook, he like totally disappeared basically for a couple years there. Yes. I'm excited to see that he's competing again at least.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think it's tough for a lot of guys. Like I think it's like for instance, when some guys quit, they actually quit. They'll leave the scene. Like I don't know if you guys remember like Mike Burke, but the minute he quit, there was no footage. I haven't seen anything on him since then. And of course, he was a great competitor, and he came up to like fourth as world's strongest man. So he was great to watch and just freakishly strong hands. So of course, all the grip events and stuff.
Yeah, that's for sure. All right, so you have anything else going on other than OSG?
So OSG, and then from there, and then I'm focusing on my off season. So that'll be 5 competitions on the year, which is towards kind of my highest. I've had 6. 6 is the most I've ever done a year. So I'm ready to kind of take that off, and I'll get ready for the next Clash 2022 on April. The weekend of the 22nd. So I think it's April. Yeah, I think it's April 22nd, 2022. So again, that'll be kind of neat. But yeah, I think it's good. It's just it was such a hit last year. So people are gonna come back stronger. There's gonna be the qualifiers are gonna be even tougher. Production is gonna be a step up. The nerves are gonna be even more. So like it was a great contest last year, but it's gonna be a totally different contest this year. So I'm gonna have to put like a great 12-week block to go up against the best. So I'm excited for that.
Nice.
There's clashes happening everywhere. There's a clash in Jersey in February. There was just a clash in the Rockies recently. There's really blossoming.
Yeah, those are all the super series. So like that was like the 4 that he had, and he wants to have a bunch more. But there's also other clashes, and clash has been used before, right, as a term for a contest. So not all. So like if not all clashes are part of the Strength League clash, because there's a clash with the Tridents, but that's been a thing. And I think there was another contest to use a clash, but like for instance, so he did 4 Super Series. I think Anthony hopes probably had like 8 to 10 qualifiers next year between maybe like 2 more in the U.S. and like a few abroad, like maybe like Australia and Europe, and maybe 1 in Asia, maybe a Middle East one, maybe with the connection with Wuss. So the sky's the limit.
That's awesome. That's pretty fantastic. Well, we are approaching the 1 hour mark, so maybe we'll start wrapping up here. John, do you have any other pertinent questions you want to ask Nick before we?
Well, the kind of the most important thing to say is to remind everybody to subscribe to Hunger Smash Fitness and like this stream. We should have reminded you earlier, or you should have just done it on your own. But yeah, if you like what you're watching, which I'm sure that you do, subscribe to his channel. And when we're all done here, go on over to my blog, Strongest Man, and subscribe to my channel. We both would really appreciate the support.
Definitely. Yeah. So maybe Nick, in closing, maybe do you have any sponsors that you want to call out or anything like that?
Sure. So of course, my first sponsor was my Total Performance Sports, so my gym. So again, they of course let me kind of compete and kind of do everything in the gym. So I always, of course, appreciate their help. Of course, Tsunami Bar, and then Strength Fleet, and then Strength Fleet's where I have most of my kind of coaching content. So I have not only instructional videos, but my program, and hopefully more programs coming out in the off season. So but that's just my stuff, and of course, is all the great coaches. So yeah, those are probably my sponsors. And then and then in terms of kind of like social media, of course, you can follow me on Instagram. I do have a TikTok. I resurrected my YouTube, and then of course Anthony Furman and I actually started also a podcast of our own, but more focusing kind of like on the mental side of kind of the winning mindset, kind of what it takes. We're going to talk kind of like some special guests, but it will also be kind of a discussion as well on certain like kind of topics. So that's something that we're kind of starting up too. So hopefully drop that probably in the next week or so.
Yeah, definitely shoot us that link and we'll be happy to share it.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah. Thank you guys. But appreciate it. And of course, hope you guys stay strong and prosper.
Yeah. Thank you for coming on. Definitely. So
yeah, really appreciate it.
Yeah, so once again, everyone who's watching this, we had Nick Camby on. Fantastic interview. Thank you so much for joining us. Yeah, like John said, make sure you head over to his channel, subscribe to his channel as well, like this video, and comment down below if you have anything else that you want us to add, or if you want us to bring Nick back on in the future. Sure. Line up all the comments down below, and we'll try and get something arranged. But that is all for today, so thank you for joining us, and please have a wonderful week.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Take care.